deep interest in various amenities, but if we just remember we are pretty well an hour and a half late now because of various things, and we appreciate all the interest. Greg.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ross.
Rescue Helicopter Trust.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Barrow's my name. I'm the Chief Executive of the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust, and today Leander Hunt is here to assist me giving this presentation. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you to the Auckland Council for the support they give us, and I would like to acknowledge the members of the Auckland Regional Amendment Funding Board who are sitting behind us and thank them for the great job they do and the difficult job they do and divvying up the pie, so to speak. So thank you very much for the support that we receive from both your organisations. Appreciate that there's some new members of the council today, so I just thought we'd just quickly go over who we are. We are the owner and the operator of two Auckland Westpac Rescue Helicopter Trusts. We conduct air ambulance and search and rescue missions in the communities of Auckland, Coromandel and the Hauraki Gulf Islands, and we've been operating that service for around 45 years now, and we now conduct over 1,100 missions each year. We're only partially funded from central government, so we rely heavily on the generosity of the public to keep the service running. In a recent survey we undertook, we found that 87% of New Zealanders consider rescue helicopters to be an emergency service, just like the police, the fire and ambulance. When ARHT supporters were asked that same question, 95% of them consider that we are an emergency service. 90% of our supporters rate us highly or very highly, and 41% of our supporters have either used our service or know someone who has used our service. Our service is available 24/7, 365 days of the year. Our response time targets are to be airborne within 10 minutes of receiving a tasking during the daytime and within 20 minutes of receiving a tasking at night time. We directly employ all the necessary crew, including intensive care paramedics, meaning that we can confidently and reliably respond to emergency call-outs. And we invest heavily in staff training and in the most up-to-date medical equipment. And around 20% of our operational expenses are in the provision of clinical services. We have a very strong clinical and patient focus. Through a memorandum of understanding with the Auckland District Health Board, we have specialist emergency doctors on our crew 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we've forged a unique strategic partnership with the New Zealand Blood Service, enabling us to carry 2 units of whole blood, meaning that we can perform life-saving blood transfusions on scene or in the air en route to hospital. Trauma Code Crimson is a unique innovation in conjunction with the Auckland District Health Board, meaning that in flight our team can call the alert code Crimson and thereby mobilise the hospital team to receive a seriously ill patient. Operating theatres, anaesthetists, surgeons are all on standby for when the patient arrives, saving critical minutes. We also operate a rapid response vehicle available to respond to emergency calls in the inner city, taking the best clinical team and expertise to seriously ill or injured patients in the Auckland suburbs. Initiatives such as employing intensive care paramedics, having doctors on board, carrying whole blood, the rapid response vehicle are all extra value that the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust provides to the Auckland ratepayers. These services sit outside of central government funding contribution and are 100% funded from fundraising income, i.e. the generosity of the public, local business and the Auckland Council. We feel strongly about providing 100% patient and clinically focused service to those who need us the most, and we take very seriously our responsibility of providing an emergency service. See from the pie graph up there that 60% of our missions are for medical events, 34% are accident related, with search and rescue and hospital transfer work forming 6% of what we do. In the last year, 31% of the jobs we carried out involved winching patients out of either the sea or out of the bush. Over the last 3 years, you can see that the medical side of our business has grown and the accident side has dropped off a little bit, and search and rescue and inter-hospital transfers have stayed about the same, with just being a small part of what we do. We work, 60% of our work is in the Auckland region, 29% is in the Coromandel, and 11% is outside of those regions. For those missions that we carry out in Auckland, 42% in the Greater Auckland area, and the chart out to the side shows you where we've carried out our missions. 45% of our missions are to Waiheke Island, that is of the Auckland missions, and 13% is to the Hauraki Gulf Islands, including Great Barrier Island. Yeah. We funded 46% from a fee for service, that is through ACC and the Ministry of Health, and through district health boards and the National Rescue Coordination Centre and the New Zealand Police. 54% of our operational funding is from sponsorship grants and donations through the Westpac Bank and a family of sponsors, through the Auckland Council, capital grants and fundraising. 100% of capital costs rely on public donations and fundraising. Our costs, in the last financial year, every mission that we undertook cost $7,713, of which $6,450 were for the helicopter content, that is the maintenance of the helicopter, fuel, piloting, etc., and $1,263 per mission was for patient care. For each mission, the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust needs to fundraise $4,165. We rely on fundraising to cover 54% of our operational deficit and 100% of our capital requirements. To protect the trust income and improve financial sustainability, we focus on diversity in our fundraising activity and continue to look for innovative ways to raise money. All our fundraising is done in-house. We do not outsource to third parties. And our targeted cost of fundraising is 28%, meaning we aim to ensure that it costs 28 cents or less for every dollar that we raise. From the Auckland Regional Amendment Funding Board, we received a grant of $450,000 in the 16-17 funding round. The ARAFA contribution to ARHT has decreased by 33% since our first grant, and today the grant represents 3% of our total income, and we use that money to fund 108 missions in the last year. 3%. For the future, we are going to continue to focus on developing a highly skilled workforce. We want to continue to focus on improving our clinical and aviation capability and participate in the government process for emergency air ambulance services in New Zealand, with the aim of securing a long-term contract to deliver services to Auckland. And we wish to promote the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust as the leading service provider and the model for New Zealand. Once again, thank you very much to the Auckland Council for its support, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Greg. It seemed a very high proportion of visits to Waiheke. Are they associated with the vineyards and overindulgence? Councillor Cooper.
Actually, a friend of mine got picked up by the helicopter. He was at a wedding over there a few weeks ago, and he's very good now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, you say that there's a percentage of pickups outside our area. Do you get any contribution from the DHB outside the Auckland DHBs or those councils?
Yes, we do. We get a grant from the Waikato Regional Council of around $50,000 a year, and we have quite an intense fundraising program to fundraise for missions outside Auckland. We've spent a lot of time in our application to ARAFA clearly spelling out that Auckland money is used for Auckland missions, and we do not use it to fund missions outside Auckland.
Thank you.
Councillor Walker. John,
Could you
I mean
just,
Wayne Walker, sorry.
flick back to the previous slide, if that's possible?
No. Here we go.
Okay, so it might have been the one before. Anyway, just picking up on the comment about the funding from government effectively picking up the long-term emergency contract for Auckland. What impact would that have on your funding?
There are 11 trusts in New Zealand that provide rescue helicopter services throughout the country, and all of us have a contract with an organisation called NASO, the National Ambulance Sector Office, which is a combination of the ACC and the Ministry of Health, and all those contracts come up for renewal in 2018. We've held the contract successfully for a number of years, but I don't think we can take it for granted. I mean, if we were not to be successful in that bid, I'm not quite sure what the future of the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust would be. It would be involved in one way or another, but we're of course hopeful that we will continue to be the provider of, or the recipient of government funding in the future.
Thank you.
Councillor Cashman.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Thanks for your work, guys. It's absolutely critical for this city. My question is a very simple one. You've got some very expensive helicopters, and your capital replacement program, how's that going?
Oh, it's going along very well. We are patiently waiting for an Italian helicopter to mature to a stage where we would be confident to own one, and we're hopeful that we will order one within the next 12 to 18 months, and then shortly after that we would hope to order a second one. It's a total cost of around $20 million US, and we are feeling comfortable about that number. We will have to take on some debt to achieve that, but we are looking at creative ways of how we're going to handle that debt.
It's an expensive bird here. Thank you.
They are.
Councillor Mike Lee.
No question, just thank you. We often view Auckland as a city, but it's very much a maritime region, so, and you know that well, so thank you very much for the magnificent work you do for the people of the Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Good point, Mike.
Thank you, Greg. That's very good as usual.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Auckland Arts Festival. John, Carla, David.